I'm joined now with Niamh Fitzpatrick. Of course, Niamh, you won't be riding at the Olympics, but you have a very important role to play.
I have two roles actually. I am the sports psychologist with the Irish Olympic team, so I'm responsible for the whole of the team while they're in the village, but I also happen to be the psychologist with the Irish eventing team.
Of course, there is an awful lot of pressure on the riders physically, but obviously mentally as well.
Yeah, if you think about it, the Olympic Games is the top of the tree. It's for every athlete in whatever sport you're in, it's the ultimate. And so when you get to that environment, there's very much a big pressure internally to perform and deliver on the day when it matters. But with the Olympic Games, there are additional pressures, such as it's quite an unusual environment in that you're sleeping in apartments with maybe athletes from other sports. You have to take the buses around the place. Everybody from your family is trying to get you to get them tickets. And the world's media is on this place at this time. So there are pressures at the Olympic Games that might not be at hand at another venue, for example.
So just explain to me how your role takes shape.
Well, it's first probably about getting to know the riders. I'm lucky in that I would know the sport at a very, very, very basic level. I was involved in equestrian sports right back at pony club and university level. So I know the sport, but my job then was to get to know the riders and what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, where is the gap between what their optimum performance would be and where they're performing now, and how mentally can I help train them to bridge that gap. So maybe, for instance, a rider might be lacking in confidence. So how do I teach them to build their confidence? Or they might get a little bit nervous before an event. How do I teach them to deal with those nerves and to use that energy for them rather than have it go against them?
Of course, with the eventing it's quite difficult because things may not go right, say, in the dressage phase, so then you have to pull them back up then.
That's a huge thing actually, and that's a great question, because the pulling them back up is about teaching them to focus on the present moment. Because if I've done a really bad dressage test, I need to be able to park that, learn the lessons, park that, and then move on to my next phase. Or even within a dressage test, if one movement wasn't great, the best riders, what they will do is they will very quickly focus on the present moment, which means leaving that bad movement behind them, and moving on to the next one, giving it their full attention. So we might do a lot of exercises about understanding that and education about it, but sometimes the exercises will be about teaching a rider to stay in the present moment. I might give them a breathing exercise or a little psychological exercise to do that will train their mind to stop wandering off in the future.
And of course it must have proven results.
Yeah, well, there are proven results, in fairness. There's a lot of riders, for instance, who have used a lot of psychology throughout the world, and there's a lot of athletes from all sorts of sports who have used sports psychology, and they will not necessarily tell you and say, oh, I have a sports psychologist, but you'll hear them saying, you know, I feel really confident, or I feel really happy, or I'm focused on my job, and I've learned how to do it, or I've trained how to do it. And you will have an idea or an inkling then that somewhere in the background there's probably a sports psychologist lurking.
And of course there is a bit of a disadvantage in the fact that only one rider has been to the Olympics, or is it a disadvantage?
Yeah, I think, well, the way I would look at that is it is what it is. So whether it's others might perceive it as an advantage or disadvantage, we're going to take it for what it is, which is we have one experienced rider. We have other riders who are hugely experienced but maybe haven't been to the Olympic Games. So one of the things that I will be doing is helping them realise, how does this environment in London compare to the other places that you have been and the other things that you have done that are similar? So helping them, if you like, look into their past and see what's relevant, so that they can go to London, to Greenwich, and say, I've done this before. Maybe not here, but I've done it somewhere similar.
I'm joined now with Giles, Warrington. Giles, you have a very important role to play in the Olympics this year.
Yeah, I'm involved with the Olympic Council of Ireland. I'm kind of their sports science advisor. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I suppose with the eventing team, my main role is kind of the physical preparation, but I also have a role in terms of performance planning. So it's looking at the kind of the small attentions to detail which will impact on performance. So it's really part of a multidisciplinary team, so working with psychology, and it's looking at the issues that can really have an effect on the performance of the athletes at games time.
And when does your role actually start?
Well, we've been working with the riders over an extended period of time, and I think it's really the build-up. It's really about getting those things right up to the time of the games, but it's really in the early stages, looking at the planning, attention to detail, the small 0.5% that make a difference, that can actually help impact on performance. So really how to plan effectively and look at those targets.
Giles, what's actually going to be your role at the Games?
Well, my role at the Games is quite varied. I'm actually going to be the manager of the main training base, which is going to be at Lensbury and St Mary's. So a large proportion of the team will be based there, but obviously I'll be there as well to provide sports science support as required to the athletes. So it's kind of a mixed role. And I think that's what the case is. When you get to Games, it's about providing a role which is appropriate at that time.
And you've met all the riders now, and you've obviously assessed them. How do you think we'll get on over there?
I think they'll do very well. I think they're a good team, very focused team. They put a lot of work into the preparation. A lot of people don't see the attention to detail, the work they do. So I think they'll do very well.